Hey, everyone. Thank you, Jim. It's great to be here to talk Death Before Dishonor with all of you. I'm really excited for the weekend. Can't wait to go back to Arlington. I think we got something really cool there going at the Esports Stadium, and I look forward to hearing your questions. Thank you.
All right, Tony, good to hear from you. So here we go. We're going to start with Andrew Bedala from Final Bell Media, and then on deck will be Jason Powell from Pro Wrestling Net. Andrew, you lead us off.
Hey, Tony. Thanks for doing this. With last week's AEW Collision being sold out, and given the residency's success this far at the Esports Stadium in Arlington, would Ring of Honor consider exploring residencies for show tapings and live pay-per-views in the future? Thanks.
It's a great question. I mean, this has been a really interesting experiment. We're really very happy with how it's gone so far. Really like the Esports Stadium and had a great debut there for AEW, and excited for tonight's episode of ROH, which features a lot of great content we shot there at the Esports Stadium. I think it's a great home for AEW and ROH, and I absolutely think we'd love to explore more shows here or in other unique and exciting venues. It's a very intimate experience, and it was great for the live show. The wrestlers really enjoyed it, and I think the live fans really enjoyed it. It was a great experience for everyone in Arlington, I think, and it did a great TV rating. We had great numbers. It was the highest rated episode of Collision in months, and it was a great week for AEW. We had the highest rating for Collision in over 2 months and the highest rating for Dynamite in over 3 weeks. And it's also a great home for ROH there, and I think we're going to see how the rest of this residency goes, but absolutely this Path to All In series and the ROH shows we're doing in Arlington, I think so far it bodes really well for more shows here and more shows like this. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Jason Powell from Pro Wrestling Net is next, to be followed by Dominic D'Angelo from One True Sports.
In unprotected chair shots to the head in pro wrestling lately, including one on last night's Dynamite show. And I know you've had Chris Nowinski in to deliver seminars about head trauma, and I'm sure you're aware of the damage of CTE, given your status as a member of an NFL ownership family. So what is your stance on unprotected chair shots? Is there something being done to gimmick these chairs that in your mind makes it okay?
It's a great question. And it was a very nuanced question. There's a couple different things in there, and I think the nuance you added to it made it an even better series of questions. I don't necessarily want to get into pro wrestling, and I love that we analyze the mechanics of pro wrestling and the things going on. I do like to leave some of the art of this and some of the kayfabe of this in the wrestling. And I think that's the best way to do it. But I thought it was a great match. Everybody came out of it in great shape, all things considered. I mean, everyone's beat up bad, but to be honest, this is probably the least major injuries we've ever had coming out of a blood and guts match or one of these very brutal multi-man death matches. And I'm glad everyone's going to be okay. Well, it's a really beat up group, but all things considered came out very well. I think it's a great question. I don't think all these spots are created equal. There's different spots, different ways to do things. And, I don't want to compare apples to oranges necessarily. I think it's a great question. And, there's definitely some mystery to be left to how things are done. And, how things might be done now might not be the same way they would be done 25 years ago, just to do the same spot, for example. But I think it was a great nuance. And I appreciate you asking. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Dominic D'Angelo from One True Sport is next, to be followed by Stephanie Chase from Stephanie Chase Wrestling. Dominic.
Okay. Tony, you able to hear me all right? Hey, how are you, man?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Card looks great. It's a nice, tight little card. It looks really good with the matches. Mark Briscoe, Roderick Strong should be a lot of fun. Kind of the two wrestlers I wanted to talk about that have been on ROH before are the Von Erichs, and you having a residency in Texas right now and everything like that, and having them appear there. Curious what your status is with them and your relationship with Kevin Von Erich as well.
I absolutely love working with Ross, Marshall, and Kevin. The Von Erich family are tremendous people, and it's an honor being in Arlington, Texas, being there around the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and that's their territory. You know, it's an honor doing pro wrestling in the Von Erich's territory and having them give it their blessing and having Kevin be there and be a part of it. I really enjoy spending time with the Von Erichs. I love talking wrestling with Kevin. He's got a great mind for the wrestling business, and it's been really nice to have Kevin backstage. He's a great mentor to other wrestlers and a great person for us all to learn from, and he's really been having fun. The Von Erichs have gotten with some different people here in AEW. We've seen him teaming up with some of our great wrestlers in AEW and ROH, people like Orange Cassidy and Dustin Rhodes, and great to have the Von Erichs in Arlington with us as part of the shows we're doing. And I love working with Ross and Marshall in the ring and Kevin backstage or anytime he goes out there. It's a real treat for us. So definitely love working with the Von Erichs, especially in Texas. Thanks.
Thank you, Dominic. Stephanie Chase from Stephanie Chase Wrestling is next. Samantha Shipman from the Daily DDT will follow Stephanie. Steph?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Oh, hi. You're currently in negotiations regarding AEW's TV deal, and Ring of Honor's now been on Honor Club for nearly 2 years. Is Ring of Honor part of the package you're negotiating, or have you looked into getting it on TV again?
Yes, I have. I've had good conversations with Warner Brothers Discovery, and Ring of Honor has come up in these conversations, which is exciting. It's really a great time for the wrestling business and for AEW, and an exciting time for ROH also, with AEW negotiating major media rights package and having these in-depth and exciting conversations that we're having right now with Warner Brothers Discovery as we speak. I think it's tremendous for ROH to be involved in this, and yes, it's something we have discussed. It's a great brand. We produce great Ring of Honor content weekly, and the pay-per-view shows like This Death Before Dishonor, as well as a great library of historical content and trademarks and all kinds of IP opportunities. So yes, it's an active conversation now, and Ring of Honor is part of the bigger AEW discussions that we're having. It's a great question. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you, Stephanie. Samantha Shipman from the Daily DDT is next, to be followed by Arunaville Ghoshal from Sportskeeda. Samantha?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, it was a delay. So I was curious because we see Death Before Dishonor is tomorrow night, and as of today, I know that we have an Honor Club episode coming up tonight. We have 5 matches announced for the main card, and typically by this time we have maybe 7 or 8 matches plus a 0-hour card. Can you talk a little bit about why you have, or will there be more matches added, and then why we have why these matches have not been announced prior to the show, as you have with previous pay-per-views?
Well, we've announced 6 matches. So we've announced 6, not 5. By my count, I think we've got Mark Briscoe versus Roderick Strong for the World Championship. We've got Athena versus Queen Aminata for the Women's World Championship. Billy Starks versus Red Velvet for the Women's World Television Championship. Wheeler Yuta versus Lee Moriarty for the Pure title. We've announced the Texas Death Match of Diamante versus Legit Layla Hirsch. And we announced the Survival of the Fittest 6-way, which is a good segue. We've announced the Survival of the Fittest 6-way with the champion Atlantis Jr. defending versus Leo Rush, Lee Johnson, The Machine, Brian Cage, Shane Taylor, and Johnny TV. and I have had to make a lot of changes. We've had a lot of injuries. The Ring of Honor World Six-Man Champions had an injury, and I've had to vacate the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Championship in the past couple weeks here, and with Jay White out injured. Also, in addition to having one of the ROH champions out injured and that affecting the trio scene, one of the top stars who had been in the championship picture and was going to be, frankly, in the TV title picture, where he's made it clear it's a big goal of his to regain the TV title, is Dalton Castle. And I think Dalton Castle has done tremendous always on ROH, and in particular this past year I've really enjoyed working with him on ROH. He's done some great things, and I think he has a lot of chemistry with a lot of people on the roster, and I had ideas for Dalton Castle on this show, and he got injured, and I've had to make some changes to the card. Bit of a domino effect in the men's matches. For the women's matches, we announced 3 great matches coming out. I'll be honest, if other companies announce 6 matches for a pay-per-view or even 5 matches for a pay-per-view, I don't think they'd get as much stick as I do. And I think pretty much anything I do in wrestling, I get more stick than anybody else per capita for just about anything I do. If I sneeze, people are mad at me. And, there were a lot of changes that had to come to this card as a result of a series of injuries that happened. Like I said, on the women's side, losing Sky Blue does affect some things in both AEW and ROH because she's wrestled in both, and that was a challenging injury. But yeah, losing Jay White, who was a champion in the company, and then, of course, Dalton Castle, who was positioned to prominently feature on the card. I've had to shuffle some things around. Really excited about the card, and the 3 women's matches on the card are matches I've really been excited about, and that have all been building up on TV consistently for a while. And I think people have wanted to see a lot of women's wrestling on pay-per-view and shows, and think hopefully everybody's really excited to have great matches like Queen Aminata versus Athena, even though Athena has been out injured and hasn't been able to wrestle on the show week to week, which we really miss because Athena is a big part of the show. Very excited about Athena versus Queen Aminata for the world title. Very excited about Billy Starks versus Red Velvet. These are matches that we really, since the last pay-per-view, we've been building towards, but due to a series of injuries, unfortunately, not everybody's been around. So it's kind of a theme of those injuries. I think those are both great matches for the championships with Athena versus Aminata, Red Velvet versus Billy Starks, and also really excited for that Texas Death match, Diamante versus Legit Layla Hirsch. I thought their lights out match was outstanding last week, and it looks to be a great Texas Death match. And I will be adding more things into the card, and frankly, we taped some really exciting stuff last night. We had a really hard-hitting Wednesday night. In addition to the blood and guts, we shot the Royal Rampage. There were over 30 wrestlers on the Rampage card last night, and I have to evaluate the roster. I can't just throw people into matches willy-nilly on paper based on what I want to do when I have that many people wrestling in something like the Royal Rampage, which is going to be a great match on Friday. You have 20 people in that match alone, and a lot that I'd like to use. And I have to look at who's banged up and who is actually going to be able to wrestle 48 hours after we shoot the Royal Rampage. So, I'm really excited about the card, and I think the 6 matches we've announced are tremendous. And looking forward to putting in some more great stuff now that I know who is likely to be cleared after last night's carnage. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Samantha. Arunaville Ghoshal from Sportskeeda is next, to be followed by Bill Bodkin from the Pop Break. Arunaville.
Audible?
Hey.
Hey, so I just wanted to know your thoughts on Mark Briscoe and his reign as the ROH World Champion. This is his first reign after all. So if you can share your thoughts.
Yes. Could you maybe ask your question one more time about Mark Briscoe? About my thoughts on you said my thoughts on Mark Briscoe?
Your thoughts on his reign as champion, how it has been stage and on screen.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm a huge fan of Mark Briscoe. It's whenever we have Mark Briscoe in AEW and in Ring of Honor, and across our shows, Mark Briscoe is one of our top stars. He had this amazing match on Blood and Guts last night and a great promo, too, that really helped bring the match and his team together, in my opinion. And I think the world of Mark Briscoe. It was here in ROH where I started working with Mark Briscoe, and it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me to have Mark Briscoe as the Ring of Honor World Champion. He's been a great World Tag Team Champion. He's been a great member of the Ring of Honor roster basically since the first show. He was at the first Ring of Honor show. He would have wrestled on it, but he was too young. And he's been a part of Ring of Honor, though, and been there since the very beginning. And Mark and his brother, I first met them in Texas, around Dallas, actually, over 2 years ago at the first Supercard of Honor. And that's when I got to start working with the Briscoes and never looked back. And I love working with Mark. I think he's a great champion, and I'm very excited about his match with Roderick Strong. There's a lot of history going back with Roderick Strong and the Briscoes, and now there's a lot of history that's been established here between the conglomeration and the Undisputed Kingdom. A lot of things happening in recent weeks between those groups, and I think Roderick Strong is a perfect match, a perfect main event match for Mark Briscoe as the Ring of Honor World Champion. I think either one of them, Roderick Strong or Mark Briscoe, they're both great candidates to be a world champion here. They both have great history in ROH and with each other. And frankly, the last place I ever saw Jay Briscoe was in Arlington, Texas. And I think of it every time I'm there now. And I carry several different photos of Jay Briscoe in my wallet. I think about him all the time. He's a great guy and a great wrestler, maybe the best I've ever worked with. And Mark Briscoe, certainly right there near the top, at the top too. And I think he's a great champion in ROH. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Arunable. Bill Bodkin from the Pop Break is next, to be followed by Chris Mueller from Bleacher Report. Bill.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Okay, great. Tony, recently on an interview, you listed off some of your favorite AEW matches. I would love to get a list of your favorite Ring of Honor matches under your ownership, and I will give you a caveat. You can't pick the Briscoes versus FTR 3 times. Like, I mean, we all know they're some of the greatest tag matches of all time, but I would love to know what you consider some of the greatest Ring of Honor matches since you purchased the company. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I would put the whole trilogy at the top, at Briscoes versus FTR. They've been great matches, Briscoes versus FTR, the trilogy. The first match in Garland, Texas, and then the second match at Death Before Dishonor a couple of years ago in Massachusetts. And then the final, the dog collar match, coming out of that 2 out of 3 falls match. We had the dog collar match in Arlington. I think those would certainly be around the top 3. So many great matches with Athena as Women's World Champion. So many great matches with Athena. 2 of my favorites would be with Willow. I think the pay-per-view match with Willow was outstanding at Death Before Dishonor, and they all fantastic match in Orlando. I believe it was the main event of the second episode we've done of the Honor Club TV. It was the main event of the first session. The last match of the first session we ever did in Orlando on the Honor Club TV for ROH. The Athena Willow matches have been outstanding. And those would be some of my favorites. I think the Kingdom Top Flight matches, they had a great match in Arlington on the 0 hour, and then Fight Without Honor in Orlando. I think those have been outstanding. Gosh, so many great matches here to choose from. But those would definitely be some of my favorite ones. Working with those guys, those have been a lot of my favorites. Chris Jericho versus Claudio, the Ocho, really enjoyed that. even though it was an ROH title match on Dynamite, I thought Jericho's matches with Ishii and Bandito were outstanding during that Ocho run. Really great matches. Claudio versus Eddie Kingston, outstanding matches. Their match in Los Angeles, I thought was excellent. So many great things in ROH. We have great champions, great world champions now with Mark Briscoe and Athena defending their titles, and certainly those two have been involved in a lot of the best matches I've ever seen, and definitely here in ROH, some of the best matches we've had. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much, Bill. Chris Mueller from Bleacher Report is next. Rob Wilkins has a write-in question from Fightful when Chris and Tony connect. So, Chris, you're up.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. So, Tony, you had mentioned earlier about Jay White's injury, unfortunately forcing you to strip the titles off the Bang Bang Gang. But in Ring of Honor, we've seen a couple of champions have extended periods of time injured without having to relinquish their title. I was wondering if you could go into what factors you use to decide whether an injured champion will just continue to hold their title or if it's going to be stripped and a new champion will be crowned.
A lot of times it depends on the prognosis. It's a great question. A good example is Wheeler Yuta with a concussion. It's a very unpredictable injury. We didn't know when he was going to come back. He got injured in January against Eddie Kingston in Daly's place and was out several months. And at one point, it seemed like he might come back sooner, but that was a long time to be out. And he was very banged up and needed the time. He's a tough guy, Wheeler Yuta, very tough guy. And he did the right thing. He had concussion symptoms and sat out. And I wasn't sure when he was going to return, but because we didn't know it was going to be such a long time frame at the beginning, we had assessed it and said, you know, I'll kind of look at this and see how it's going. And it just kept lingering, unfortunately. So Wheeler Yuta is a good example where if you told me it was going to be so many months he'd be out, I might have done something different. But just, you know, with concussions, they can be very unpredictable sometimes. And, you know, with some of these other injuries, just going off the outlook and the prognosis and knowing that there's going to be an extended period of time for sure, that can make it a little bit more of a certainty about, you know, doing something, making a change, possibly vacating a title if you think that somebody's going to be out for sure for a long period of time. But sometimes with some injuries where there's unpredictability, maybe you want to give them a chance, see how it goes. And then, you know, when the injury lingers, you look back and you say, wow, you know, it's been a while now, but at the beginning, I just didn't know how long this person was going to be hurt. So I think that is a big factor in it. Thanks for asking.
Very much, Chris. Thank you, Tony. Rob Wilkins from Fightful has this writing question. I'll give you in a minute here, Tony, followed by Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. Tony, Rob wants to know, it's exciting to see MXM has arrived under the AEW/Ring of Honor umbrella. Are you looking at free agents for Ring of Honor specifically, or are you hiring under the AEW umbrella?
Well, these are great questions. We have done both. We brought people in to work in ROH and then given them opportunities in AEW. By taping right now Collision and ROH in the same place, it gives us great opportunity to have flexibility, moving people across the rosters, even having a bullpen of people to call between shows. And it's been tremendous. And I really do like it. And I think with the hot Texas crowds we have, they love coming to the wrestling shows, and they are so hot for these matches. And I think that right now, wrestling in AEW and ROH, it's a lot of fun. And by taping the shows together in this really exciting, intimate environment, it gives us a lot of synergies between the companies, including the ability to utilize some of the wrestlers, often young wrestlers, in different spots and getting them a lot of experience, sometimes in both AEW and ROH. Thanks for asking.
Thank you very much, Rob. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer is next, to be followed with a write-in question from Cam Hawkins at The Ringer. Dave. Dave?
Hey, Dave, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, got you now.
Okay. So earlier we were somebody had asked about the TV deal, and my question was that for Ring of Honor or even potentially for AEW, is there a possibility of like a split deal, like not just WBD and another network, perhaps? And are you open? Have you opened up anything in that direction? You know, similar to like what WWE's done, what the NBA's done, things like that.
That's a great question. We're still having great conversations right now in this exclusive window, and I think it's a very interesting possibility, an exciting thought, and very focused right now on the conversations we're having here at TNT and TBS and with Warner Brothers Discovery about AEW and potentially ROH as well. And that right now is 100% of the focus as we're working through this exclusive period. And they've been such great partners to us. And when you look at the history of pro wrestling, there's so much utility, so much history, and it just fits and feels right for there to be pro wrestling every week on TNT and TBS. And I want to make sure that's still a great American institution, because I really believe in that. And I'm very proud we brought that back with AEW on TNT and TBS every week. I think it's a very exciting time for AEW and now also for ROH because of AEW's profile and the exciting opportunities we have in the media landscape right now for AEW and what we've been able to do with ROH and really grown the brand in exciting ways and built Honor Club to where it's its all-time high under our leadership and ownership of in terms of streaming subscribers and putting great content on Honor Club. I think that can be an exciting possibility for ROH as well. And right now we're exclusively talking to Warner Brothers Discovery about these things, but absolutely, I think there's a lot of demand for AEW in the market, and anything's possible, but definitely very excited about everything at Warner Brothers Discovery right now. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. I've got a couple write-in questions here. The first one here is, what do you feel is different artistically and aesthetically about Ring of Honor in 2024, and how will you keep that direction going forward?
Jim, one more time. Can you mind asking me again? I just want to make sure I understand the question about the direction going. What was the first part of that?
What do you feel is different artistically and aesthetically about Ring of Honor in 2024, and how will you keep that direction going forward?
It's interesting. Well, there's a lot of things. I think we've really hit on a great formula, not only in 2024, but of doing exciting pay-per-view shows, having really a top roster, and putting on consistently, I think Supercard, Death Before Dishonor, Final Battle, year in, year out. These have been great shows. I mean, I think almost every big ROH show we've done has been excellent, and it fits in the theme of the great AEW pay-per-views we've done. Consistently between AEW and ROH, that the big shows will always deliver. And I think there's some really exciting stuff on our weekly TV. To me, a big aesthetic change that we made and an interesting opportunity is what we're doing in Arlington right now at the esports stadium. And we're going to continue to fine tune that and try to make that a perfect home. But it's been very well received, and I think people are going to really like tonight's ROH TV and the matches we filmed in Arlington. And there's some other content in there filmed outside Arlington as well. But I think in general, what we filmed in Arlington, and that it's tremendous. And, we've had good experiences shooting in those kind of intimate environments before, but I think it's going to make for an excellent environment for the pay-per-view show on Friday night.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Getting some write-ins here. Here's another one. Atlantis Jr. capturing the ROH World Television Championship aligns well with this Arlington residency, which is seemingly placing an emphasis on lucha wrestling. Can you talk about the decision to use this residency as a way to feature more stars from CMLL, as well as debut AEW's newest talent, Hologram?
Yes, I absolutely can. I love Lucha Libre. I'm a huge fan of Lucha, and I think that in Texas, there's a lot of Lucha Libre fans as well. And we've got this great group of Lucha stars. I think it makes so much sense to bring that great style and these great luchadors to an environment where the fans are red hot, passionate, and it's a place where there's a great history of Lucha Libre. So it's definitely a concerted effort. It's by design to bring some top luchadors into AEW, into ROH, and have these great matches there in Arlington at the Esports Stadium. And we're going to continue doing that. It's definitely something we believe in. It's been a great partnership recently with CMLL and bring in some of their top stars, as well as having a lot of our top stars go to Arena Mexico. And recently, Willow Nightingale became the CMLL Women's Champion. And we want to continue expanding and developing that great partnership. I'm very blessed to have an excellent relationship with Mr. Salvador Lutheroth and the great people that run CMLL.
All right. Thank you for that. We got at least one more write-in here. I'm just going to get all these write-ins rolling here, if you don't mind. ROH was listed as one of the promotions competing at the upcoming Wrestle Dynasty pay-per-view at the Tokyo Dome at the beginning of 2025. Are you working to make ROH's representation more clear-cut from AEW's on that pay-per-view over the next 5 months?
So let me make sure can you mind asking me that again?
Sure. Ring of Honor was listed as one of the promotions competing at the upcoming Wrestle Dynasty pay-per-view at the Tokyo Dome at the beginning of 2025. So the question is, are you working to make Ring of Honor's representation more clear-cut, more of a separation from AEW's on that pay-per-view over the next that's coming up in 5 months?
Well, it's a great question. I suspect a lot of the top stars from AEW and ROH are going to be participating. It's still a while away. And I will be definitely sending a lot of great wrestlers and highly likely champions from AEW and ROH. It remains to be seen in 2025 who the champions will be in AEW and ROH. But I am absolutely committed to New Japan Pro Wrestling that we will be sending top stars, and that includes great wrestlers from AEW and great wrestlers from ROH. And it's definitely a great partnership with New Japan, and you'll see top stars from New Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL, AEW, and ROH. And we'll see as we get closer to the new year and that event in January, where we are and who the champions are in AEW and ROH at that point. Thank you.
Okay, more write-ins. This is the write-in day. Tyler Wilson from Dan Patrick's School of Sportscasting at Full Sail University. Tyler would like to know, when bringing on local indie talent onto the show to have a match with AEW Ring of Honor wrestlers, what is considered in giving them that opportunity?
Well, it's a great question. A lot of things. So, and just to make sure I understand that write-in question, Jim, can you ask me that one more time? I just want to make sure I understand that.
What Tyler wants to know is, like, when you're bringing indie talent in to face off against AEW talent or Ring of Honor talent, what sort of goes into those considerations you're thinking? What kind of criteria do they need to hit?
Great. Okay, I'm glad I double checked. I think that helps a lot. So yes, I think the criteria depends on the spot. You know, we first of all bring in a lot of indie talent, unsigned talent. You know, give people opportunities, and sometimes it can be in a featured role because we really want to get a look at that person and have heard good things. Other times we need people to come to the shows, you know, and there are spots to be filled. Either way, it's a great opportunity, whether we're there to look at you specifically or whether, you know, you're there to be a part of the show and you happen to get that opportunity. Either way, it's a great opportunity and people have to make the most of them. I think, you know, when you bring in an independent wrestler and give them an opportunity on television to showcase them, it's a bigger, more unique opportunity than using somebody possibly in a dark match, but they're all great chances that can lead to exciting things. And everyone wants to wrestle on TV and pay-per-views. And, you know, I think a lot of wrestlers have common goals like that, but there are a lot of different ways to break into the wrestling business. And we're looking for all different roles to be filled, but filling a role well or doing a great job, you know, showing something, showing some kind of ability. It doesn't always have to be athletic ability. There are all kinds of different abilities, and showing off different abilities in the ring, backstage, wherever you do it, that impresses myself or the people that work with me and helps somebody make so there's a lot of ways to get your foot in the door. So we're looking for all different things, and, you know, somebody coming in might get a showcase or more of an opportunity to show themselves, show their stuff. But there are a lot of different roles to be filled on a wrestling show and a lot of different ways to get your foot in the door. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Tyler. Then we've got one here from James Rudy at Rudy Media. The Arlington residency just seems like a match made in heaven for the professional wrestling history and culture in Texas. Tell us about your memories of professional wrestling in Texas. Did you see matches in Texas as a youngster? And who were some of your favorite Texas-born wrestlers?
Well, I had not attended wrestling in Texas until AEW, actually. I don't, you know, other than places I'd lived, because I had not lived in Texas really, and I've traveled certainly many times there for fun and when I was a kid, and then later on in my professional career in football, a lot of time in Texas for football. It's something that happened in my professional wrestling career, spending a lot of time in Texas for wrestling. I've spent a ton of time watching wrestling from Texas. I'm a huge fan of Mid-South Wrestling and a huge fan of world-class championship wrestling. I loved watching shows from Houston and love watching world-class shows from Dallas Sportatorium and their great territory. A lot of great history there. I grew up as a tape trader in the 90s, was trading a lot of tapes from the 80s. And a lot of my favorite matches and memories are Texas wrestling. And in particular around Dallas, obviously I mentioned earlier on the call, being a fan of World Class and the Von Erichs, it's a real privilege to be able to work with Kevin Von Erich, Ross and Marshall. Kevin and his brothers put on some of the greatest matches ever there around Dallas. And I love watching the Von Erichs against the Freebirds, Gino Hernandez and Chris Adams, and really enjoy the Fantastics versus the Midnight Express, and so many of the great matches and memories of World Class. Of course, Fantastics, Midnight Express, and so many others, big part of Mid-South wrestling and a great wrestling tradition there. And that, of course, carried into Houston and the whole Mid-South area, which is some of my favorite stuff as well. And then in recent years, we've been doing a lot of our shows, AEW and ROH, in Texas. And most of my favorite wrestling memories in Texas are those shows. And winter is coming. So many great matches, including Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page, 1 hour draw. Winter is coming about 2.5 years ago. Crazy how time flies. Have really enjoyed doing those shows in Texas. And then also the Ring of Honor pay-per-view shows we've done around Dallas, in Garland and now in Arlington as well. And I mentioned before the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship matches, the Briscoes versus FTR, the first and last of the trilogy were around Dallas. And those are definitely some of my favorite wrestling memories in particular. And, like I said, it was the last pay-per-view of 22, Final Battle of 22 in Arlington. That was the last time for a lot of us, including myself, that we ever saw Jay Briscoe. So it brings some great memories of Jay when we come to Arlington anytime. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, we've got one more write-in, and then after that, we're going to go to Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics. The next write-in here is from Party Pod, asking just generally, Tony, your thoughts. 2 years ago in March of 22, you announced the acquisition of Ring of Honor. Your memories and your pride now that you're 2 years plus in.
Well, it's been amazing. It's a couple years in, very amazing. It doesn't feel like 2 years have flown by, but really incredible where we're at for AEW and ROH. It's a really exciting time in the media landscape, a huge opportunity for our promotions and for ROH. I think to have some great champions and championship matches and rivalries showcased on this event, it speaks really highly of Ring of Honor. When I acquired the company, they had an uncertain future a few years ago, and I believe now some of the best champions in wrestling and some of the best matches and moments in wrestling in recent years have come from ROH, and it's been an amazing revival of a great company with a great history, and I love that, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to do for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. We have Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics will be next, followed by Brian Zillum from PW Torch. Brandon.
I was wondering if you could tell us if there's any truth to the report that there's an agreement in principle between AEW and WBD for a TV renewal.
Well, we're having great talks. It's still in conversation, so I think that would be premature to say that, we're all set and done, because that's, still what we're working on. So having great talks, including today, and have had some great meetings with the executive team, Mr. Zasloff, Kathleen Finch, Bruce Campbell, and great people at Warner Brothers Discovery. They've put a lot of time in and had a lot of great meetings and conversations. So it's still something we're all working on together. So yeah, I think it would be premature to say that for sure, but also important to note that it's a very good ongoing dialogue that we're having. Thanks, Brandon.
Okay, and we're going to wrap up here probably with Brian Zillum from PW Torch. We may have a couple more write-ins here, actually, Tony, but Brian, you're up next.
Hey, Jim, can I tell you something?
Yes, sir.
Or Brian, you know, it's interesting. You know, I don't usually do this, but since Brandon brought it up and asked, you know, I had a major member of the wrestling media mention to me yesterday. WWE is telling people that, and I don't know why WWE is telling people about our media rights deal. I don't really know what it's any of their business. I don't really understand why WWE PR calls people and talks about my business. WWE PR is telling people that the deal is done and that the deal is done at the same level that it was going to be our previous deal. That's not the case. I don't know why WWE PR and why major wrestling media members who are very credible and have never lied to me are, you know, I don't know why they're telling people that. It's none of their business. I think WWE PR really gets involved in a lot of things they shouldn't get involved in. And I can tell you that is very untrue, because when we make a deal for AEW, it's going to be a great deal with a big increase over what we've been doing. We're in a really good position. We've been doing great business here despite what they're trying to do to us. Thanks.
You got it, Tony. Thank you for making that point. And with that, we will close with Brian Zillum from PW Torch. Brian, you're up.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Hey, great, Brian. Good to talk to you, sir.
Good to talk to you as well. Thanks for your time today. Tony, I wanted to ask, with AEW doing the Path to All In up until August 17th, has there been any concern regarding fan fatigue? Obviously, you know, you're running a lot of shows, including ROH taping. Has there been any thought or intrigue about maybe getting any other local businesses around the area to help you move tickets, whether that be the Texas Rangers or you've got venues like the Six Flags and even the Dallas Cowboys at all to help you out?
Well, it's a great question. We have great people around us. Absolutely. I mean, right now we're having very good success, and right now it looks like a lot of people want to be at these shows. And after people saw the venue and how much fun it was on TV, we've had great ticket sales and movement. And there's a lot of partners here in the area to work with. One thing that works in our favor big time is these hot crowds. I mean, talk about a great natural resource. The red hot Texas wrestling fans, to be able to tap into these people. Absolutely. You couldn't ask for a better group of people to come week in, week out to wrestling shows. And that's something that we're really tapping into here, but absolutely to bring in new fans, to bring in more fans. There's a lot of great partners in the area, a lot of great people to potentially work with. I have so much respect for the great people at Six Flags. I really like them. And obviously they are in the area, and I've had some nice talks with them. I just think they're fantastic people, and would love to talk more to them. They're very near to where we're located here, and I've had some really nice interactions with them since you brought them up and asked about them. And of course, you mentioned the great ball clubs around the area, Texas Rangers, a great client of True Media Networks, my analytics business, right now working with so many great major league clubs and media partners, including the Texas Rangers and the Dallas Cowboys, who are also our partners in the National Football League and my really good family friends. So tons of people we could always work with in the area. It's great thoughts, and just so much exciting infrastructure and relationships and people, just great human beings here around the Dallas area that we can work with. So I think that's a great question and a great thought, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Brian, and thank you, everybody here. I thought we'd give a little time here toward the end, Tony, with so much ahead in your life and career with not only the pay-per-view tomorrow night, but you got Premier League starting, the NFL is around the corner. So if you didn't mind, I thought I'd just give you a few extra minutes here just to kind of, share your thoughts on all things in your universe.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's a really exciting time. I think we've had some good talks and some great questions today. It's a lot of excitement and interest around the AEW media rights, and it's a very exciting time for AEW and also for ROH, as we said. Like Jim said, it's an exciting and busy time in my life. It's kind of a year-round grind in pro wrestling. You know, there's no weeks off, no time off in wrestling, but in our other sports, it's very cyclical. And felt this is a busy, exciting week with the start of training camp. My dad and I were just there for the first team meeting of the year for the Jaguars. We have great leadership there. Doug Peterson, very exciting time getting contract extensions done there with a lot of our top players. Very exciting time for Fulham now in the transfer window, doing some exciting business and working on some things I'm really, really excited about at Fulham on the pitch. And like you said, Jim, what an amazing time it is for AEW as well, you know, getting ready to go to Wembley Stadium. I'm so excited to go back to London and have AEW All In. And first and foremost, of course, we have this Path to All In series in Arlington, and ROH are the great TV tapings we're going to have, and Death Before Dishonor this weekend. I think this is going to be a fantastic weekend of wrestling. We have so much stuff planned in and around Arlington this weekend. Really looking forward to ROH Death Before Dishonor. Again, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, for a lot of us, when we go to Arlington, a lot of us think this is the last place we ever saw Jay Briscoe. And when I first started doing ROH, it was also around Dallas. It wasn't in Arlington. It was in Garland, but it was close by. And there on the Dallas Metroplex, I have a lot of great memories, and that's where, you know, I first met Mark and Jay Briscoe, and then, like I said, it was the last time I ever saw Jay Briscoe. And I think in his memory, I would love to have a great Death Before Dishonor show, and so much of what we do is dedicated to his family, his memory. And I expect great matches tomorrow, top to bottom. I think Athena, the women's world champion, going against Queen Aminata. It's such an exciting match. Very excited about Athena's protege, Billy Starks, making her first ever pay-per-view defense of the Ring of Honor Women's World TV Championship. In fact, it is the first defense on pay-per-view ever of the title since it was launched. And what a great challenger, Red Velvet, somebody who in that TV title tournament had an amazing showing, some great matches. One of those matches was against legit Layla Hirsch, and what a rivalry she's built with Diamante. I think that's going to be an outstanding Texas death match following the great Lights Out match last week. And man, you know, speaking of Mark Briscoe and his family and the history, you got to talk about Roderick Strong. And talking about Ring of Honor and the great history of this company, you got to talk about Roderick Strong. He's one of the greatest wrestlers we've ever had in AEW, and he's also one of the greatest stars in the history of ROH. He's got a lot of history with the Briscoe family, and that's going to be an amazing world title fight. So much great stuff on the show. I really appreciate all of you giving me the opportunity to talk about what we're doing in ROH and in AEW, and everything going into Death Before Dishonor and Collision and this big weekend in Arlington. Thanks to all of you in the wrestling media for being here. I know I've said it before, but I really do mean it. Without your coverage and all of you taking the time to write the stories and cover the wrestling business and the wrestling shows, you know, you make it possible for the fans to stay on top of the industry. And I know all of you work basically year round also. There's no time off for you either, for the most part. And I appreciate you. Thanks for covering our show. And it was nice talking to so many of you today. For those of you that are going to be in Arlington, I hope to see you there, and I'll try to answer everybody's questions in person also. And if you didn't get a question in today for any reason, hopefully I'll get a chance to answer your question in Arlington in person, and I promise I'll do my best. Thanks for being here. And Jim, thank you for moderating. It was great.
Of course.